Earlier this week, we told you about the world population hitting a new milestone. The UN predicts that 8 billion people will live on this planet by November 15th. That's more than 3 times what it was in 1950. By the end of the decade, the population could grow by another 500 million people. By 2050, over 9.7 billion and well over 10 billion by the turn of the next century. So which countries are driving the world's population growth? Well, according to the same UN report, more than half of the growth until 2050 will come from a handful of countries. Countries like the Democratic Republic of Congo, Egypt, Ethiopia, India, Nigeria, Pakistan, Tanzania, and the Philippines. Joining us now to help us understand this is John Wilmoth. He's the director of the Population Division at the United Nations. Thank you so much for being here. We really
appreciate it. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about the trajectory we're going to see here. It looks as if we are going to continue to rise in the near term. Will we then plateau? Will it come back? What do we think the long term looks like?
Yeah, well, the main takeaway of this report, or one of the main takeaways, is that the global population continues to grow. That's true. But that growth is slowing down. And we've seen a gradual slowdown. The peak rate of population growth was around 1970, when the global population was growing at about 2% per year. And now we've fallen below 1% in 2020. And that will continue to go down. And we expect that by the 2080s, growth will hit zero. And we will reach a peak population size, and probably the human population will never go above that.
Wow.
Is what we expect.
Help me understand, why would that be? Why is it slowing down?
Well, it's slowing down because, first of all, why was it growing? Because we've been in this era of growth.
Right.
This is unusual in human history. It's not common that human populations grow at 1% and 2% per year consistently over a long period of time. And so what has caused that is something that we call the demographic transition, which is basically a transition towards longer lives and smaller families. So it's kind of toward a modern world that we're all kind of used to.
A world in which there's family planning, where there's technology for life saving.
Yes.
All these factors come together and both slow growth, but also shrink because it's shrinking families.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it drives growth because the reduction of mortality and keeping people alive longer, that just means there are more people. And especially that was true with children. Children were so likely to die before they would reach adulthood. And so, the first gains in terms of reducing mortality affected children and youth. And so we had more children surviving to adulthood and then having children of their own. And therefore that would drive population growth.
Right.
So it's the drop in mortality that starts this process of population growth. And then what brings it to a close is the reduction of the birth rate, reduction of fertility rates, average numbers of children per woman. Once that falls to around 2, then you get zero growth eventually.
So what's so interesting to me about this, though, is that by 2080, we hit that zero growth moment, but it is not as if that zero growth will be evenly distributed around the planet, right?
No.
We're talking here about some countries, I would assume, shouldering a much heavier population burden than others. Am I right about that?
Well, there will be differences in size, and some are going to grow much more between now and then. Like Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, we expect that the population will double in size between now and 2050.
Wow.
So it's going to become a much larger percentage of the total population in the world.
I'm thinking about cities like Lagos, Nigeria, which is already a jam-packed environment. That is a very, very big city. But you're talking here about that continent doubling in size. Those cities will become enormous.
Yeah, that's true. There will be more of these megacities, is what we anticipate. But a very important thing to understand is that the whole world is going through this similar process of this demographic transition towards longer lives and smaller families. It's just that the timing is very different. For Europe and North America, this process was finished by 1950. It was whereas for the rest of the world, it really started in the middle of the 20th century in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So as a result, and then even within those parts of the world, Asia and Latin America moved very quickly through this process in the latter half of the 20th century. And sub-Saharan Africa in particular is really going through this process now. And so that's where most of the growth is occurring and will occur over the next few decades. But all parts of the world are going through the same process. So that's why we expect that, it's going to come to an end. Because we've observed this in a lot of countries, and we've seen what's happened, like in Japan, where this process is very well advanced and the country is declining in size. China is going to start declining in size next year.
That is unimaginable to me. That is really amazing. That is really amazing. So when I think then about climate change and how it acts with what you found here. We were speaking earlier in the show with an economist who was describing the vast shifts in population due to climate change, people moving away from increasingly hot places to cooler places. Do we know anything about your findings in the context of climate change and how it may force people to move around the planet?
Well, I'm not sure I completely agree with the previous speaker about that. I was listening to him in the green room, but as far as how many people are moving currently as a result of climate change, it's not clear that. I mean, he mentioned the massive movements to Europe in recent years, but those were driven much more by refugee situations.
Political situations.
Yeah, by political situations that were driving people out. Climate is going to be one of several factors that influence whether people stay where they are or whether they move.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the only factor. It's going to be one of many things that people weigh. And I think it's going to be difficult in many cases to say that somebody is clearly, a climate migrant as opposed to an economic migrant.
But certainly we could imagine that people are not simply going to stay static in the places they are right now. We're going to see a world that's going to follow this trajectory you're describing, and there will be some movement.
Movement north. I think he's right. I mean, the mention of that. I think Russia and Canada probably have some very valuable real estate.
And tell me for a moment, just when you, as an expert in this, think about 2080, a moment of zero growth, what opportunity does that give the human species, do you think, at that time? Can we somehow get our arms around problems that have eluded us before now? Is there something about stable population that's going to help?
Well, I think it's going to help in terms of reducing the impact that the human population is having on the global environment. The problem is that we need changes in the next 3 decades. We can't wait till 2080s.
No.
And we cannot count on slowing the population growth as a means to solve those problems. We have to look at what individuals are doing on average. What's the average consumption? What is the average emission of greenhouse gases and so forth? And that's where we have to focus our attention over the next 3 decades. There's very little that we can do to slow the growth of the human population over the next 3 decades.
Right.
But if you start and then it accumulates over a few generations, then you can have more of an impact. You can slow what we anticipate for the latter half of the century, but there's very little you can do over the next 3 decades, and that's when we really need movement, improvements to kind of address the climate issue, and so it has to come from other things, and I think that's a very important message.
That is very fascinating. John Wilmoth with some really interesting insights about the coming generations. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.